Ty, 21. I've done this before, been about 2 years, been in the same position you guys have been in, trouble please, same thing, so hopefully today we can relate and talk. When did it change? Like, I've always noticed this thing that, like, remember when you used to just go play outside with your bedrooms when you was young?
Oh yeah.
When was that time when you said you're not to your bedroom, like, okay, this is the last time I'm coming outside?
Like secondary school, but I didn't even tell them, you know, like, we all just grew up in it. And then people die.
Yeah. Have you lost bedrooms?
Huh?
Have you lost friends?
Nah, not even still. Family though.
Family. Okay. How about yourself, bro? Nah, but when did that change for you when you said, I'm no longer this person, I'm this person now?
I'd say like secondary.
So what?
When you just get out there, like when you just chill.
Yeah.
Seen as like when you're with a group of people.
Yeah.
I feel like that's when the change starts.
So would you say it's more influence that happened?
Yeah. My name's Levi. I'm 17 and I'm from the Walsall area, Darlaston. I grew up in a little town called Starport, and like it was predominantly like white. Like I grew up around a lot of like white people, and to like when I moved to like Wolverhampton, then like I was around like a lot of multicultural. I'd say like my dad was more strict, and like I got to see a lot like through my dad, and with my mum she was more like lenient and like just different. So when I was younger I went to school in Starport, and then when I moved with my dad then I went to school in Wensfield, and I stuck through just one primary school basically. Well, I did two. I was like good. I was a good kid, smart, but like I'd also like mess around.
When you messed around, was it because you were distracted or?
Yeah, distractions.
From other people?
Yeah.
My name's Zoe Morgan. I'm a head of service for the title is Help Protection and Support. So I oversee our front door services, which is our multi-agency safeguarding hub, our MASH team, which is a multi-agency representation of all referrals that come through our front door into children's social care. And I also am responsible for our Turning Point Adolescent Service, which is our edge of care service that offers some therapeutic intervention and relationship intervention with some of our young people and their families who are at risk of coming into care. I would say that in terms of the actual referrals that come through to our MASH, what we know nationally is that black children in particular are more likely to need a level of social care intervention at some point in their lives by virtue of the fact that they are perhaps living in areas of higher levels of deprivation. Well, from a social work professional, and not just from my time working in Walsall, but from my experience of working in Birmingham, for example, which is a much more mixed demographic of communities, I would say that in terms of working with young black boys in particular, they are disadvantaged from a much earlier age. So, for example, the education system tells us that young black boys are underachieving in line with their when put against their white counterparts. Now, in terms of the education system, that could be for a whole host of reasons. It simply says to me that whatever our education system currently is, it is not meeting the needs of all of those children because some are lagging behind.
David Smith, I'm the principal of Blue Coat Academy in Walsall. I've been the principal here for just over 6 years. Previous to that, I worked for 3 years as a deputy head in Wolverhampton, and prior to that, I worked teaching, moving up into senior leadership roles in another Walsall school as well. Generally in school, when we're analysing any sort of data, whether it's student outcomes, whether it's behaviour, almost anything that we would do, we would analyse it in a whole host of different ways. Ethnicity would be one, At a simple level, gender is another one, but also, what sort of background children come from. That all help to develop a picture that then helps us to understand what some of the barriers may be. It may be that there's particular weaknesses in the way something's taught that doesn't engage a particular group, and that would be something that we're keen to look at. I think there's a temptation to combine groups of students and to kind of see them as an entity, when actually there are some real subtle but significant differences between those groups of students. Well, I think statistically there is significant overrepresentation, so that would suggest that there is some sort of bias in the system. It is very difficult to draw hard and fast conclusions, though, because I think one of the things that we benefit from at school is a diverse population where staff are used to dealing with a wide variety of different children from different backgrounds, and an increasing breadth of diversity, where the expectations culturally, the role of parents is very different for some of those communities. Across the country, you obviously haven't got that diversity in the same way. So there will be, I'm sure, some inbuilt bias in the system where groups are underrepresented in terms of the pupil population, but then overrepresented in terms of particular consequences, exclusions and the like.
Even like with teachers, like some teachers might say I'm smart and some teachers might say like I'm a bad kid. It just depends like if you know me or not, because you can't really perceive someone on just what they look like or how they act, because you don't know what their other actions are like. But then I've had teachers which understood like, and like which has actually said like, you're actually a good kid when like you get given that chance.
Yeah. How did that make you feel at that time when they said that?
Big up myself, like.
Felt proud.
Yeah.
Oh no, at one school it's only two though, like I got promoted straight away, but then like I've seen the white geezer get their chances. And he didn't get promoted.
Yeah, I agree still.
My view on education is that like it's fair to like certain people, but you can like depends what's like. I learnt most things at pre, or like in the mainstream ain't really fit for most people or fit for some people. I do give it the education system that they've got a separate like off-brand to education system to teach other people which are in need of special teaching.
Okay guys, so again, just as we wrap up, what we tend to do, we tend to call this bit a time of reflection, yeah? Based on everything. My name is Ricky Otto. What I mainly do in my company is develop bespoke empowerment programs for young offenders, those on the periphery of offending and those incarcerated. My experience with the youth justice system really started when I joined the probation. I think when I finished my football career, I always kind of was thinking about what am I going to do after I finish playing football. But again, it was a no-brainer for me because obviously because of my past, being incarcerated in my adolescence, I always felt once I started playing football and I kind of turned my life around, I really wanted to give something back. I think as you transition from primary school into secondary school, I think you become more aware, not just of yourself, but I think you become aware of poverty. You become aware of, society and the haves and the have-nots. You kind of see what your friends, family may have, which makes you look at what you don't have. And I think those will conjure up emotions and feelings. Definitely for me, when I think about growing up,
yeah, my troubling times was literally around that, when I was coming out of primary school to secondary school. At 10, 11 years of age, I knew that I was poor. And I saw the disparity when I was looking at my team that I played for. And again, for me, becoming aware of myself and, my appearance and how I want to look and how I'm perceived, you start thinking, well, hold on a minute, how can I get that?
I'm your host, Garden. Welcome to My Life Story. Today I'm with your guest, Nathaniel.
Oh, hello guys.
Welcome to My Life Stories. Today we're going to be talking about social issues and respect. Do you feel like you was respected in your area?
Yeah, of course. Like, being there from young, innit, so it's only right to give me respect.
On the topic of respect, do you think like you was respected outside of school, like with your friends in your community?
Like, you know what it is? Some friends come and go, innit. It depends on your mindset, innit. Like, if you want to have good friends in your life, then you keep them in it. But if you want to have bad friends, you keep them. Life's about choices.
Did you have any hobbies in school?
Oh yeah, I had in primary school I used to play tag, rugby, football. When you go into year 7, there's a football team in it. So like in year 7, you're fresh. Like, you just want to do everything in it, like, just because it's gonna be like the thrill is the thrill. So I played football year 7 football team.
What do you still play football now? And what if you do, what's your position?
I play football now. Play right back, but yeah, I'm just trying to be consistent.
When I grew up, there were youth centres, and I think, going to those youth centres, particularly between the times of 6 and 9, I think was huge in keeping us engaged in something that stopped us from going out on the street committing crime. I'm not saying that will change everything, but all of the money that was going into youth centres, play schemes throughout the 6 weeks holidays, there was always things going on. When you take all that money out of the equation and just leave man with nothing to do, right? There's a saying, the devil makes work for idle hands. Do you know what I mean? There's not enough for them to do anymore. So I think we need to start, the government needs to start thinking about putting money back into these type of interventions. Because if you want to reduce crime rate, you've got to give people something to do. You can't just say stop committing crime, right, tougher sentences. Some people ain't thinking about sentences when they're hungry. Do you know what I mean? They're just thinking about meeting that need now.
We're at Brunswick Park in Winchley. I haven't got too many memories, but all the memories I'd say is positive. We got the basketball court, / football court there, and then you got the skate park, and you've got a fair which happens every year. I feel like there needs to be more investment into the youth, and more opportunities for the youth, and see what youths like and try just build opportunities for them, because I don't feel like there's enough opportunities and there's only school, and then what are you doing after school? You know what I mean? There's nothing to do. I heard that there was youth clubs back a day, but then they all got shut down. Now there's the way, but why would all people from Wolverhampton and Walsall go to one youth club when they might have problems with other people in Wolverhampton, Walsall, around the area? Mm-hmm. So I feel like there needs to be segregated youth clubs and places where they feel comfortable, because they might not be comfortable going to one place which is in a big city. I do feel like there needs to be opportunity in every single town place. I feel like it's all just in they're just brushing it to the side. They need to actually care about the youth, because at the end of the day, the youth is the next in line.
wouldn't say it's a good place, it's not a good place, but for me, it was good because I've worked there since I was young, but to some people in the public and that how the news makes it seem like it's a bad place.
I think most people commit crime because of poverty, because they don't see no way out, because they're growing up in an environment where there's more deprivation.
This money, quick money ain't nothing. It's not nothing, because where can you even spend it, bro? You get me? You can spend it on clothes, you can spend it on this, and probably you can wash it and make put it into something else, bro. Do you know what I'm saying, bro? It don't take you nowhere, fam.
So I'm Sarah Lewis. I'm a Youth Justice Officer, currently in that role, although I am a qualified social worker as well. We are in such a crisis in terms of the cost of living. It's going to impact everybody in the criminal justice system, not just black boys, but I can see it affecting the most disenfranchised and the families that are struggling the most. And if you look at the demographics, it's bound to affect the young black lads in such a great way, because of the family environment that a lot of them may be in. And there comes the pressure. If you as a young person or a young lad feel like, well, my mum's struggling here, the bills are going up, what can I do to help in some kind of way? What can I do to lessen the pressure? And so that's the point where they will be exploited, because everyone knows what's happening. So if you can get an opportunity to get some quick money, then I only see things going in a very negative way, to be honest, because of the situation, the time that we're in.
My name is Hannah Gilbert. I'm a Youth Justice Officer for Walsall Youth Justice Service, which means that I manage young people who have offended. Just recently I've had a young person that couldn't get to an appointment because he didn't have the bus fare. I think we're going to see more problems like that. That's a fairly easy problem to tackle. We can offer young people lifts, we can give them even free bus tickets for the day, but kind of on a long-term level, the implications for young people are that they are often missing meals. A lot of our young people come from neighbourhoods, families where drug use or alcohol misuse is apparent. So in a family like that, when you've got a choice between eating and drinking or using drugs, often the decisions aren't made with the right priorities in mind, which ultimately affects our young people. That means I expect to see our young people complaining about being hungry more often, perhaps not being dressed appropriately for the winter with winter coats, the right shoes and clothes and stuff, because their families just simply can't afford it.
What are some of the things that you've both seen here, like good and bad? What are the good things that you've seen?
Like around the area, seen streets taped off. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of things work on, like not just here, like the whole Carmen area. I've seen a lot of things. I've seen stabbings. I've seen people swinging knives about. I've seen people. I seen my auntie nearly died because she got stabbed like a few seconds ago. Seen a lot of things.
Oh yeah. Streets can kill you mentally, not physically, like just mentally. You must get over.
Streets can kill you mentally. Does that mean like it can kill you dry the rest of the day?
Yeah. And then when that happens, you're trapped.
Do you think that you guys still alive mentally?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're still driving forward.
One of the most devastating things I experience is working with some youths and seeing parents who have acquiesced to the crimes and the money that's coming into the homes from some of their own children. I've worked with youths, 14, 15, that have been bringing in like £500 a week, bringing in plasma TVs and bringing in all kind of things into the home. And I know the parent wanted to discipline their child, but when the parent is struggling and then the child starts coming in with all these goods and money, one of the most devastating images is watching the parents have to acquiesce to the child bringing in the money. Because now what that does for the child, that validates what that child is doing, and he will continue and perpetuate crime.
When a young person is excluded from education, the main, other than learning, the one thing that you get in education is supervision of your time and supervision of your peers, your company. When young people aren't actually in that, you've got a whole lot of hours where they may just be on a street or they may just be hanging around at a park. This leads them to be so vulnerable to exploitation by others, by adults who may be in their early 20s or whatever, other young people who are in the same situation as them. You form a group, you form a friendship, and then that leads them into doing things that they may not, but they know that they're not good to be doing, such as, you know, stealing cars or lots of criminal activities, drugs. If you don't also have a lot of finances coming in within the family, then you get a way where a young person can get quick money. Everyone wants to look like their peers. You want to have trainers and you want to have decent clothes and everything like that. So you get into a situation where the young ones are exploited, but they don't see it as them being exploited because they're getting something from it. But in the grand scheme of things, if a young person's been offered, okay, you can do this and get a couple of £100, there is someone behind that's getting a lot more, and also they're not the ones that will end up locked up ultimately and in prison for it. A young person takes the flak because it's known that they will get a lesser sentence just because they are younger.
You know how good it feels to spend money that you've worked hard for, and it doesn't go so quick as well. Quick money goes quick. You see, when you work for money, you're more reluctant to spend because you think
you can't get money for free though. Every single type of money you gotta work for.
Yeah, of course. You gotta work for what you want. Do you know what I'm saying? But then that's where you become your team, because at least you're working for what you want. And it's better to work for something that you like to do as well.
So I'm Phil Rutherford. I'm the strategic lead for the Youth Justice Service here in Walsall. Been working in criminal justice for nearly 20 years now. Started off within the probation service, and then made the decision to want to work with children and help children, so I moved over to Youth Justice Services. We have a range of responsibilities involving, managing court orders, managing police disposals, and helping children improve their lives. In terms of the Walsall YJS, we've identified reducing disproportionality, the overrepresentation of black boys and boys with mixed ethnicity. We've identified that as a key strategic priority for us. So we know it's an issue here in Walsall, we know it's an issue nationally, but our partnership board, our partners, people within the service are determined to make a difference for those groups of children. There's correlations between deprivation, poverty, and children ending up in the justice system. Particularly for our black boys, we're seeing issues where parents have lower paid jobs. Sometimes we have lots of single parent families that are trying to work two jobs just to survive. Lots of our boys are telling us as well that they don't see very much of their dads, their fathers. So dads and fathers sometimes aren't on the scene, which creates additional pressures and stresses within those households and those families. Often those boys then they're searching for something different. They're searching for belonging, identity. They're out there in their communities trying to find a place where they're accepted. So the issue around deprivation, the issue around environment compounds all of these issues, and yeah, it makes it much more difficult for these boys to achieve.
So in Walsall, during 2019 to 2021, black young people were more likely to receive one of the two most severe outcomes that young people can get when they've offended. And that's particularly disproportionate when we consider that the statistics also tell us that black young people are less likely to be convicted of the more serious offences compared to their white peers. Disproportionality is something that we only can really recognise when we take a step back and look at data on a kind of bigger scale than individually. So it's hard to sometimes see on an individual basis how each young person plays a part in that system. But certainly I would say, in my experience, the young people that I've worked with, there's been disproportionate numbers of black young people. And what that means for them, the impact is that there are potentially black young people who are being given more serious outcomes that are affecting their life chances in the future, or being sent to prison, which is the most serious outcome that young people can have, that maybe are not there for the right reasons. They're not there because of the offences they committed and their actual behaviour and their risk. It's because of the fact they're black, ultimately. So that means that disproportionate numbers of black families are having children living away from them outside of their care, not being able to build that support network with them. Disproportionate numbers of black young people are having to attend court for their offences, whereas they might have been given out-of-court disposals had they been from another ethnic group. It's complicated, and I don't say that to sort of skirt around an issue. That's the honest answer. There's no one single driving force that is causing this. Clearly, there's racism at different levels of decision-making processes. So perhaps when young people are being arrested, the officers that have within their discretion the power sometimes to give them out-of-court disposals or not making those decisions for black young people for whatever reason. When they get to court, black young people are being given disproportionately more severe sentences. So that would suggest there's some unconscious bias within magistrates and the judges. But also as a service, we write reports for court, and perhaps our reports and our assessments are leading the judges and magistrates to make those decisions about black and mixed heritage young people that are biased. But it's bigger than the criminal justice system. It's not just about individual decision makers at those levels that I've just pointed out. It's things that happen well before young people even come in contact with the police. It's the quality of education that black young people are receiving. It's the number of exclusions that they're disproportionately receiving, the lack of support they receive for potential mental health or additional learning needs, which are often misunderstood, misdiagnosed, labelled as challenging and naughty. It's the neighbourhoods that our black and mixed heritage young people are living in. You know, statistically, if you're black in this country, you're more likely to live in poverty. That comes with a whole host of risk factors, which means you're more likely to get in trouble or to come into contact with the criminal justice system, including poor housing, crime in the area generally, high levels of drug use, often domestic violence kind of comes hand in hand with those things as well. So, there's lots of things driving it, but I would say, in summary, racism at different levels in our society.
I think it is a fair assumption that that children's early experiences and children's experience of education can absolutely impact upon them entering into the justice system or staying in the justice system. When we look at this, it's just one of many adverse childhood experiences, but we know that black children's experience of school is often worse than their white peers, for instance. That in itself is nuanced and complicated because there are many different sections of the black community, and we know some sections of the black community do far better than others. Similar for Asian community, we know that some sections within the Asian community perform really well in school, but others don't quite perform that well as well. We also understand that some parts of the white community don't do very well in school either. But what we can see is that if a child has those negative experiences early on, if they don't receive the right support, care, love within school, they don't achieve, they don't spend enough time in there with good teachers, with good people, then we can see a journey through where that child is more likely to be involved with getting arrested by the police, finding themselves in court, and ultimately finding themselves within my service.
I think more generally, some of the challenges are not really understanding the backgrounds of different children, not appreciating some cultural differences, that the way that some of the children are dealt with, spoken to, isn't always conducive to them being feeling as well respected and as well regarded as they should. And I do think that in some cases leads to people coming into conflict with each other, teachers and students coming into conflict with each other, and situations escalating. We're in the fortunate position that in our school is quite rare, and any case is done on an individual basis. But more widely, there is that challenge which we've tried to address of trying to understand the particular needs of individual students. Now, there are some common characteristics amongst those related to boys against girls, related to students from different backgrounds. And I think understanding the deeper cultural expectations is quite key in making sure that there is that sense of respect.
School and early years support is a massive part of children's lives. It's where they first get their, apart from obviously their family, but they get their first sense of identity within their community. It's an area where they're supposed to feel safe and secure and ready to learn. Now, obviously something within that overall system for some children, not all, obviously for some children, that isn't necessarily meeting all of their needs. There's got to be factors where ethnicity plays a part. So, for example, why is it that black boys in particular have higher rates of exclusion than, say, white boys for perhaps similar behaviour patterns, for example? And I know that there has been lots of work that's been done within the education system to suggest that. Now, obviously, when you have structures in place from an early point at that time in education, the impact of that moving forward. So, for example, if you get, if you are being disadvantaged in some way, then that's a stepping stone, isn't it, to further disadvantage later on in life. So there's no wonder, for example, that disparity then exists within higher education, criminalisation, the youth justice system, and all those things that come into play, because it feels as if the system starts disadvantaging certain young people from a very early age.
Practices within school are absolutely key. You've got to have good people, you've got to have good teachers, but also you've got to understand how exclusion from school can really change a child's life course. If a child isn't in school, where are they? They're not safe, they're easily exploited, they're within their communities, they don't receive the proper care, attention, and they're not learning. So if a child is excluded from school, their life chances go down significantly. So yeah, you can draw a correlation between school exclusion and getting into trouble with the police.
Our first speaker is here to talk to us about disproportionality in the criminal justice system. Keith Fraser is a very important person to all of us because he is the national chair of the Youth Justice Board, and for Keith, it is not the first time for him to be in this room. I've been told that he's been here many times and knows the inside and outside like the back of his hand, having been a superintendent in West Midlands Police, and I'm told he was the lead officer of our youth commission at one point. So I hope that you will give him a very warm welcome back to Birmingham this evening. Keith Fraser.
Thank you very much for that welcome. It is really like coming home. So I'd like to thank the Police and Crime Commissioner for the invitation today to talk about disproportionality. It's a subject which is quite challenging, so I just want to prepare you for that. But also, it's a subject which is not something without hope.
Keith Fraser, I'm the Chair of the Youth Justice Board for England and Wales. In relation to disproportionality, overrepresentation, it's very much for me about looking at the data and what the data tells us. And the data tells us that throughout the justice system, minority children are overrepresented in the justice system. So if you're looking at it in relation to stop and search, if you're looking at it in relation to sentencing, they're more likely to receive harsher sentences, more likely to be remanded into custody. When you look at what's driving it is a complex issue. And what I want to say is that we do not let, and this is a strong point here from me, should not let the complexity be an excuse for us to do nothing, and I can talk about that a little bit later on. But there'll be a whole host of factors that feed into that. There'll be things to do with poverty, to do with family, to do with exclusions from school, the status of the young person in relation to their a care experienced young person or child. There's also, as well, if you look at society, within society there's racism, there's also bias within society. The justice system is made up of people from society. So racism and also bias as well will also have a part to play in the justice system and also impact on that. In order to significantly reduce overrepresentation, it's about, one, having a cross-government conversation. And by conversation, I don't just mean having a chat. It's about getting together and looking at policies and seeing how those policies and how we can change systems to actually reduce overrepresentation. Now, I chair something, and the YJB runs something called the Youth Justice Oversight Group, which brings together government departments and senior representatives from those government departments and statutory agencies to explore systems and policies, procedures in more detail. So that's one element. We'll also be having individual conversations with those departments as well in more detail. We also fund, as I've said earlier on, we fund Pathfinders evidence-based initiatives which are looking to tackle overrepresentation. There's a number of evidence-based initiatives running at the moment. We've got, and there are some, and also we want to change practice. We've got the disproportionality protocols which are being developed at the moment. We're working with magistracy and us and other government departments to develop disproportionality protocols for each area that's signed up to it. And there are tens of different departments and statutory agencies that are at the moment writing operational protocols as to what their response is to disproportionality. So I'm really hoping for some significant change in relation to that.
My name's Chief Superintendent Phil Dolby. I'm the Borough Commander of the policing in Walsall, so all of the cops and staff that work here, I'm in charge, and so that means that's the entirety of the borough, right from the top to the bottom of it, and it's a great place to work. I've been here about 18 months as the commander. Disproportionality is something that is really very complicated, but I should start from the principle of saying everybody should be treated fairly. There should be nobody walking down the street, and there are people who feel this way. Nobody should be walking down the street feeling that they're more likely to be stopped and searched because of their skin colour or their community. There shouldn't be parents advising their children at a young age how to behave when they're stopped and searched by the police. It breaks my heart that we hear that we've made people feel that way, and maybe that we still do. So my first acknowledgement is that we're still on a really important journey to be as good as we can be, but also to restore faith. Because one of the big tests of that for me is who's joining us, are we an employer of choice for our underrepresented communities? And we know often we're not. And then, to have more senior officers from underrepresented communities, as well as specialist officers and normal officers, to have that representation, be the community, look and sound and act like the communities we serve. It happens to be the case in most forces, but it is certainly the case in West Midlands Police, where the statistics would demonstrate that there is a higher chance of being stopped and searched if you were from, say, the black communities than there would be if you were from a white European community. So that's something we must be constantly and ceaselessly pressing into and trying to understand more and more and more. The figures around that can be quite challenging to understand what the data is telling you. So that's why I also look at the behaviours and not just relying upon numbers, because the stop and search figures and around disproportionality for an officer working, say, in Lascelles in Birmingham, which is a predominantly Afro-Caribbean community needs to be looked at in a different way than it would be for Walsall, where the last census it's 2.4% Afro-Caribbean, and so those numbers would be different.
In my time working in this field, I have seen quite a few issues in terms of the interactions that young people are having within the service. I see a lot, and this isn't particular to any area, this is all of anywhere that you can go. To me, the largest issue is adultification. The young boys are viewed as being older, more experienced, treated with less empathy, treated with less understanding. And also that doesn't just apply to the criminal justice system, that's also even in education, where young people are perceived as being, overgrown or too mature or just not treated in a tangent way with their chronological age. So that is a really big thing which I've seen myself.
Like counting with police and stuff.
What happens with them?
Misidentify you for someone else. The first ever time it happened to me, probably I think in year 7 when I was like 11 and 12 on my brother's birthday. We went to a restaurant in town, Walsall town. I must have left the restaurant to go get my cousin in town. I must have been stopped by the police, and they said to me I must match a discussion of people involved in our robbery. They must have took me to the woman. I was so confused. I was on the phone to my cousin. I was trying to end the phone. My cousin, and I didn't want to. So they took me to some woman, and the woman said, "No, it wasn't me." And then I was like, I just thought, I'm a little kid. I had a squeaky voice, and I was like, and I was a little kid, and I was short. I was thinking, I have a baby. I had a massive baby face as well. I was thinking, how can I be involved in a robbery? So I just left. Went to my cousin, got back to the restaurant, must have told my mum. My mum was like, oh, she just annoyed, really, that happened.
Can you remember the emotions that you felt at the time when they approached you?
Annoyed, and I wasn't scared. I can't say I was scared, I was just annoyed, because I'm trying to get to somewhere fast. And then they just stopping me. That's just made me angry.
Did you know what your rights were at the time or anything like that? No. And I imagine like 2 police officers, was it 2 police officers? They're, grown adults in uniform like that. Was that intimidating for you?
Honestly, it was intimidating. I would just say, like the way they approach you, it's just like thinks you like your mind thinks that you've done something wrong, but you haven't done anything wrong. Right. So you're just thinking, should you run or just stay and find out? So I just chose to stay and find out.
We've done some work as a force around unconscious bias. We do have unconscious biases. We are all brought up in a particular way. Lots of inputs come into us from family and where we live and school and all that kind of stuff. And so that definitely needs to be brought out and people recognise we've got that. We're trying to develop the cultural knowledge of our staff to appreciate more, like I've described earlier, with the learning from our history piece, what communities have been through, but also what they treasure and what they enjoy and what better ways there are to engage them. We're looking at things like complex kind of social theories that might say things like the phrase adultification, that there may be something in the psyche and cultural upbringing of white officers, white people, that says that they might see a younger black man or boy or young girl as being older than they actually are. And that's something that we're looking at. We've pushed diversity, which is great, and the protected strands of diversity, which is great, but sometimes that can also be too narrow and have unintended consequences of making people not feel valued for all the things they are, or seen for all the things they are. So There's been a phrase for a while now that describes communities as hard to reach, which I think is the wrong term. The communities have done nothing wrong, because that term puts kind of the weight on them. The phrase I prefer is that they're seldom heard. So we need to hear from them more, and we need to be with humility, with our ears open. And I know we're talking about colour, but it's not a black and white world, and you can't have black and white solutions to a grey world. And so when you go out to be a police officer, the stuff that happens is honestly mind-boggling. Just when you think you've seen it all, something else happens that just, you go, crikey. But also there's some real people in real difficult situations, you know, that we can go in and make a positive difference, not a worse one.
I am the father champion for Walsall Youth Justice Service. This is part of a strategy which has been introduced through the whole of Walsall with various partnership agencies that work with young children or children up to adult age really, which would be 18. So in every sphere where there are children and there are families, the strategy is to incorporate the voice of the father and actually have them involved in everything that is to do with their children. So this would be possibly from pre-birth, when you're going to, you know, hospital appointments, etc., up to schools, meetings, everything that has to do with young people. So within this role, my aim really has been to gather the information, because we know that there are fathers somewhere, biologically there are fathers somewhere, but we're not actually seeing them in terms of meetings, in terms of, you know, visits. Their voice is absent. A lot of times the information is absent, and that's creating quite a big issue in terms of the young people and their experience within the youth justice system. In terms of linking things together, I do believe that the father strategy will be very beneficial, although in the youth justice, I have to say, is it in its early stages of actually practically implementing things. But also what we have recognised, it's not as if there is a manual of this is how you get men. It doesn't work like that. It's more of a way of thinking and approaching work in terms of, it needs to be holistic, you know, and so it's not like, right, this is how you get a man to do this. It's about the way how we think about things, culture, society, toxic masculinity versus tender masculinity, all of those things, to try and get the fathers, you know, and whoever. In fact, it's not just fathers, and this is one thing which I do believe they've recognised this, as a young person may not actually have a father that's actively involved, but they may, and this is something which is quite often particular to young men in you know, of black ethnicity, they may actually be a part of churches and community things where they have other men who are involved in terms of being a mentor, someone that they speak to, someone that's not even related, but there is trust, and so it's gaining wider people to actually help in this process.
I still speak to my dad, but I don't get to see him. But I've got a good relationship with my dad. But yeah. At the start, when he first moved over, I'd say like I was hurt, but I don't know, I just like moved past it. Yeah. I just grew up like just without my dad. I wouldn't say I've looked up to older people at all, but it's just I've got an older brother, but like he's like 10. There's a 10-year age gap, so like, and being like from a place where I don't know know people, and I've gotten to like know new people, I'd say that it would have been like kind of lonely, but like you just have to I don't know, you have to grow up on your own kind of thing.
How do you feel that about your dad not being there growing up?
Nothing.
It's interesting. Is it nothing, or have you shut it down?
Shut it down.
So you used to feel something?
Only when it came to like interventions in primary school when everyone's parents are there and you was on.
Tell me about those moments. Describe an intervention for me. What is that?
Basically when your parents come to school to see see your work and stuff, or do activities with you within the class, and then I usually sit with my friend and their parents because my mum probably wasn't available, and then no one else couldn't come in for me, so I just stay with my friends and their parents.
So even though you were sat with a friend, how did you feel left out? Like what did you feel in that moment because your parents weren't there?
I feel annoyed and sometimes forgot about, but I got over it at the end of the day. Because at the end it wasn't my mum's fault, she couldn't make it. But to other people he could have came, but I was really annoyed at them. So it's because when I told them or remind them, they said they forgot or something.
What would that have done for you, having a male figure, a man to kind of be there to support you?
I don't know.
What impact has it had not having them there?
It's been a lot for my mom to raise 2 boys, but really, I don't know.
When we serve as an officer, you take an oath, keep the Queen's now King's peace and all that kind of stuff. But one of the real phrases in that is to serve without fear or favour. And the favour part of that is basically be fair, treat everybody fairly. We should earn the right to be the police. Service, not impose ourselves as the only police force, and they've got to have it whether they like it or not. And have that humility, listen, and where we need to make changes.
Well, in regards to the work that I'm involved with in terms of with the youth justice, I would like to see the disproportionality agenda as a key priority show some real impact. So I would like to see that those statistics that we see now moving in the right direction.
I think organisations have to be bold enough to be able to, let black people lead. We're going to address this issue, and even though we may not have all the answers, we've got enough black people and people of colour within our organisations that we need to learn from them, and not only learn but let them lead. You can't say to someone, get on this journey, but he doesn't believe that this journey is going to be fruitful because I can't see it. I can't see my own kind.
I want people to start talking about it, be brave enough to talk about it, be brave enough to get the conversation wrong at times. I know we've done that at times, we've all got it wrong, but I think we've got to keep talking, got to be brave.
And I suppose finally, in relation to that call for action and what we can do, I'm sure that people will agree that it's far more important, far more impactful if we can work upstream, and we talk about working upstream all the time, to prevent children from coming into the justice system.
This isn't just a youth justice services responsibility, this is everyone's responsibility. So I hope that people watch the film, I hope they take the message out into the areas that they work, into their homes, their families, their everyday lives. I think it's important that we put this on everyone's agenda.
It starts with those small steps with ourselves as individuals and professionals working within that system, and how we can start chipping away from the inside out.
There is a really small percentage of children from minority communities who are in the justice system. So I think the challenge is on all of us, across government, across statutory agencies, and also within communities, to work together to prevent that small number of children, when you look at it in the overall numbers, coming into the justice system. We need to keep talking about this. We need to make sure that it's on the agenda until we've dealt with overrepresentation?
I would really like, and I know it's difficult, I would love more underrepresented communities to be part of this service. Come and change it. Come and change us. Come and be part of the solution. Help us to just see things from a wider perspective. Come and be the leaders. Come and be the next Chief Constable. Come and be the next firearms officer. Come and be the next community officer. Come and be the next safeguarding officer dealing with things that happen to young people and children. Come and join us.
My message to the youth would be the same message that was communicated to me, because the message that was communicated to me in Wandsworth impacted my life. It's a message that once it was communicated, it's never left me. And so that message would be to the youth is, don't serve the time. Let the time serve you. Even though you're on a community order, even though you're in the criminal justice service, you can still serve this time well that will benefit you. So that would be my message to the youth. Don't serve the time. Let the time serve you.
I'm going to break the cycle by finishing education.
I'm gonna break the cycle by doing better for myself and standing out, and being different to the public eye, and what I did say, what teachers would have said, that this is how it's gonna end. I'm gonna break the cycle by changing that and changing the statistics within myself of what people would have thought, and just proving everyone wrong. That's how I'm gonna break the cycle.